Good evening. Let's move that out of the way. Oh. Good evening. How are we all? I can't speak this evening, so it's going to be a fun night. How are we doing? Is this working? Because I'm not sure if my internet's going on and off at the minute. No, that seems... Right, okay. So last week we did the hinges and the back, front, cover and spine. This week I'm looking at working on the front of page 1, page 2. So we'll just take one of our pages. Just be careful where I put the others, because I put something on top of something else earlier on this afternoon and had a bit of a craft avalanche. But hey, we'll get there. Just pick it all up off the floor later. So if you remember, on front of page 1, I'll take these out. We've got a lift up flap at the top. We've got a small pocket here, and then we will have our hinges here. I've left these black. I would normally cover those in paper, but it would be very difficult, so I've left them as they are. So we'll get to work on that. Okay. So for the flap at the top of the page, at 6 inches by 4.5 inches. So take that up to 4.5. Bit straight, and put that down. And then we're going to cut this at 6 inches. Okay, keep these bits because they may come in useful for other things later. So get our scoreboard out. So on the 4.5 inch side, we're going to score at 1/2 inch. Okay. And then we're just going to fold that over and get my other bone folder out. Oh, wrong one. Okay, we'll use this one. So So I'm just going to burnish that down. So now the hinge on this one is going to be, you want the opening side, our flap on. Is this freezing for everyone, or is it just freezing on my screen? Frozen on my screen. Evening Carol, evening Karen. Yeah, I'm fed up with this miserable weather as well. It's I should have been, I need hot countries and sunshine. Oh, morning Grace. Tasman region. Well, if I say my geography is not great, so my geography in New Zealand is even worse. So just pop some glue on here. I'm just going to burnish that down and just make sure that that's straight underneath. Now I'm going to do our pocket. Now I'm going to cut the pocket out, so I need one at 6 by 3 3/4. So 3 3/4 by 6. Now the reason I've done this at what seems like an odd size is that I've done the pocket to fit one of the cutter parts in the collection packs. Now if you've got sized cutter parts, or so if you've got different size cutter parts and maybe your cutter parts are 6 by 4, 4 by 3, take the measurement of your cutter part and add 1/4 inch on either side and top and bottom, and that way it'll give you your little reveal around all the sides even of your cutter part. So on the 6-inch side, we're going to score at 1/2 inch and 5.5 inches. And on the 3 3/4 side, we're going to score at 1/2 inch. Ah, Neil Lynn, who just happens to pop up on screen. So we're going to mitre the corner on both sides and throw those away, and fold on our so I'm going to just burnish these folds down. Hold that in place and burnish that there. I'm going to pop that to the side, and then what I'm going to do is cut the pop-ups. So we need to cut 2, and they're both at 1 inch. So if I line that up and cut that at 1 inch. Then we want one at 3 inches and one at 5 inches. So if you've got English A4, you just need to cut the 1/4 inch off. Now, before I do this, obviously the page is done. I need to put the papers on the back of here. So I'm going to have to put the base papers on before we attach the pocket and before we attach the pop-up sections. So that means I have to choose, which I'm not very good at and can take me ages. So if you are, sorry, my brain's gone. If you have purchased a kit, and in the kit you will have 3 pages of cutter parts that I have taken downstairs. Yes, I'm here. So with this collection, you have this sheet that I have with the pictures and phrases on, which again you do have an outline, so I fussy cut those out, and you have all your phrases. And then this one, you've got not quite 3x4 cutter parts. This is the cutter part I've used on the pocket, which isn't quite 6x4, which is why I've cut the pocket down. You've got all these to fussy cut, all your flags or banners, and these. And then on this one you've got all these, which are 3x2 and a bit, and then you've got 6 tags for you to cut out as well. So there is an awful lot of fussy cutting to do on that, but it does mean that everything matches and everything works together. So I've already got a set of them downstairs, part fussy cut, so I'm going to stick these back in here for now. Because I am attempting to stay tidy. So I just need paper for the background. I might use that one. Yeah, I think I'm going to use that one this time. Hi Renee, hi Nicole, hi Trish. So we know the width of our page is 6 inches. So I don't think there's an up and a down. So I'm going to cut this at 5 7/8, which will give just a little bit of a reveal. I was at a crop at weekend, and some of the ladies there were saying they do it half an inch less than the width of the paper because they prefer a bigger reveal around the edges. So again, we know that this is 8 inches, so I'm just going to cut that just under the 8 inches. I know some people struggle with halves, 7/8, 16th of an inch. If you just go to the 8 inches and pull it back a tiny bit and just do it that little bit smaller. So we know the flap at the top is 4 inches. So again, I'm just going to take that to 3 7/8 and trim that bit off. Now normally if I'm cutting things off, I would save the bits of paper. However, I don't think, I'll still save it, but I don't think I'll use it. So I've trimmed that down. There we go. So that just gives you a small reveal around the edge. Now if you did a quarter of an inch, you'd get a bigger reveal like that. So it is entirely up to you. People have their own preferences. Some people like to go right up to the edge and don't have a reveal. At the end of the day, it's your project, it's your book, it's your choice. Hi Christelle. Oh, Sweden. I bet it's cold where you are. So again, just slide that into place. And there we have it. And again, this will just match up at the top. Got a little gap for the hinge. Okay. Somebody messaged me the other day, and I'm really sorry, but I just got back from a hospital appointment and wasn't really with it. And I think I did message them back, but yes, there are still some kits left in the shop. I just need to make a few more of the embellishment and charms kits up. Okay, so that's all done and that's ready. Now I'm going to pop the pocket on. I have just realised that my topper to go on there is downstairs, but never mind. So all you do with that is pop your glue on like that. If it is equidistant, I will just bring that down because I want to make sure there is a gap between them, and then just centre it from both sides and put it level from the bottom. Okay, so I'm just going to burnish that down, and then when I get my other cutter parts, I'll pop a cutter part on there. So now what we need to do is make our pop-up sections. So hello from Norway. Being very multicultural today. American, and just a few of us from the good old UK as well. So for the pop-ups, we're going to score on the long side. So on the 3-inch pop-up, we're going to score at 1/2 inch, at 1.5 inches, oops, fingers, and at 2.5 inches. And then while the scoreboard's out, on the 5-inch pop-up, again, we're going to score at 1/2 inch, at 1.5. No, I'm not. If you find you've scored in the wrong place, if you flip it over and gently go over it with your ball tool, it will get rid of it. So we're scoring at 1/2 inch, at 2.5 inches, and at 4.5 inches. I'll get my finger out of the way. Okay. So what we need to do is make these into a little square. So if you fold them in and you fold all the edges in, like that. Oh, Diana, I want snow. Yeah, I'm not keen on this on the very cold, but I would like snow. So again, with the second one, folding creases in, and burnishing them down. So if I leave that like that, it should, if it will show on screen, they should make a little shape like that. Now, when we put these onto your page, what you're wanting to do, I changed my mind on this one, is they're going to go, we need to fold them back. This way to do it is to put, lost my glue stick then. Hello, Helen, you're here. So pop your glue on there. And then what you need to do is make sure your crease lines up with your crease in here. So where the crease is for your flap and the crease on this line up, then you're going to tuck that under and just hold that down until the glue takes. Okay, give that a minute or two, and then the same, whoops, on this end. So we're gonna put some glue on here, just lift that up, fold it back on itself, make sure it's straight, your crease is in line, and then just hold it until the glue takes. So now when you lift that up, it goes like that, it bends outwards, and it gives you a right angle corner, and it gives you like a square with the flap and the back, just like that. Okay, I'll do the next one. Now for this one, again, just fold your two edges in, and then line your crease up with the crease in your with your flap. So again, we're going to lift that up, pop a bit of glue on, and again just make sure that's lined up, pop it underneath and hold that down until the glue takes. Again, that the crease is level. Okay, so again we're going to pop the glue on here, make sure it's lined up, tuck that underneath and hold the glue in place. -13, oh my word. Yeah, that's too cold. Definitely perfect days for scrapbooking, mini book baking, crafting, anything that you don't have to go outdoors. So again, as I fold the flap back, you can see hopefully that they do make 2 right angles, and then when you fold it all the way down, if you just press on it, and then they will fold up every time you lift your flap up. Is that making sense to people? This is the reason you haven't got full written instructions for this bit, because I got confused with it. It's much easier to do it visually. Okay? Are we all okay with that bit? She says. So I'll show you again on this one. So, have I got any black card? Yeah. I'd rather do this a couple of times so it's right. Let me just down to 6. So this is 6 inches. Whoops. So half of that is 3, and then 1 inch in from either end to give us our fold over bit. So these can be any size you like, as long as it's hidden. Obviously you don't want these coming further than the edge of your flap. So fold it so it's got a really good crisp fold, and then one at each end. I've got room for this on here, so turn that the other way. So we've got our creases, so we've got one in the middle, and then we've got 2 1/2-inch tabs at either end. So line your crease in the middle like that. Keep that down while you pop your glue on here. Make sure it's level. Pop your flap underneath and hold that in place. I hope you can see this. And then again, lift this up pop your glue on. Now make sure it's straight. You line it up with your crease, your fold in the middle. The only reason I'm doing this with my ball tool is I end up with sticky fingers. Again, just fold that over, hold that in place, and then once you know your glue's dried, as you fold that close inside. Now that's what I meant by I've done it longer, so it does come, but that if you were doing it on a full 8x8 page, that wouldn't do it. So that is something you need to remember, is the length of this. You need to have at least that much at this end as well. But that, and then you just literally stick whatever. Now on my, does that make sense for everybody? Yeah. So the one I did in here, don't know why I haven't just left these out. I've actually popped 2 of the cutter parts on here. I think I would put on here just so it blends in a little bit more. But again, I've put cutter parts on here, and this is one of the phrases. What you could do, if you didn't want to use those, you could get, or if your paper doesn't have cutter parts on, you could, yeah, let's have a look. So if that was a photograph, you could put a photograph on there, so when it pops up you get your photograph there. You could do one photograph, let me get this right, that way, and one photograph that way, so that when they pop up you'll get 2, you've got 2 photographs on there. Or like I say, I've just used the cutter parts on that. Now put these back before I lose them. For the lid flap, if you take these out, you'll see that's a pocket, but that is what I call a cheat pocket. So to do this, first of all, I need to choose my paper, and I'm going to use the bright pink one. So again, I know the width of this is 6 inches. Do 5 7/8, or just under 6, and then again I know that that's 4 inches, so I need to cut this 3 7/8, or just under the 4 inches. Now, before I put this onto the top flap, I want to just make a pocket there. Now what I'm going to do for this one is flip it over, and this is quite good doing this with that you're not sort of fighting with the patterns on the back. So I want it up about 1.5 inches. So I'm going to measure out 1.5 inches at the top and the bottom. Then I'm going to just, oops, get my pencil. Yeah, and make sure you do measure it at 1.5 inches, not one at 1.5 inches and one at 1 3/4 inches, because that doesn't work. So I'm just going to take my ruler, line them up, oops, and do that. And then I'm going to measure in again about 1.5 inches from each end. Just realised, is my head blocking the... no. So I now need to cut along that line. So I'm going to turn it sideways because I can't do it straight. Line my knife up like that. Hold your ruler in place. And that has put our pocket in there, as you can see. I'm going to find the end of my tape, and then just so it doesn't tear along that where we've cut, I'm just going to put some double-sided tape on there just to add a little bit more strength to it. There we go. Now just need a very small blob of glue along there and round the outside, and then put glue on all this top bit and just a couple of lines here. So yeah, I'm going to pop and like this, and all the way around here, and then I'm going to put glue so the top of this is going to be stuck down well, and then at the bottom, that's not what I wanted to do, just put a little bit at the side and then a bit more there. So now I'm going to slide that into place. So that's all glued at the top, and it's glued down the sides and along the bottom, and that means you can just pop some of your cutter parts in the top there. Now you'll notice on the original, I should have brought the cutter parts up, I actually got one of the long phrases and stuck that just in front of the cut, and that does two things. It disguises it a little bit, and it also strengthens it. Which one did I use? So the cut's just over 3.5. So yeah, I used the Hello Cupcake because that gave, if you've got a phrase that you want to use that's not long enough, what you can do is put your phrase at one end and then put a flower or a cupcake even at the side. So I think I'm going to do it that way. Whoops. I'm going to do so again, we're just going to cut around here. perhaps not as neat as I could do. Brother Scan and Cut. You will be able to scan these sheets in. Click on offset. So if you click if you choose just the outline and then use your offset setting, and I usually use, I think I use 1mm, and it will cut these out for you and probably do it a lot quicker than I would, but I'm not going downstairs. So if we just trim round that, and somebody asked me the other week, how do I cut round things? I find it easier to hold the scissors still and move the paper. I think everybody, there is no right or wrong way. It's whatever works for you. Whatever you know, you do you find your easiest way of doing it. So there's my sugar, and I've not got one. Have I got a spare? No. So I think I'm going to use one of the small cupcakes. And again, with this one, you should be able to cut it out like sitting with my feet up in front of the TV. I think that's going to be long enough. Yeah, so as you can see, that doesn't cover the whole of the pocket. So let me just cut around the cupcake. That doesn't really go. It's not quite big enough, which is a bit of a rookie error not measuring it first. So I'm just going to go cut around this quickly. Obviously, if you've been quite sensible and cut all your cutter parts out, instead of doing this, all you'll have to do is try them for size when you get to this stage. So what I would do is actually use tape under here, because again that will give it a bit more strength, which is why I like this tape, because it's tearable with your finger. Use your poker tool, take that off. So the sugar is just going to sit there. And I might, that's not quite to the edge. So again, I'm just going to pop some tape here. and then I'm just going to pop the cupcake there. Now I don't want to put glue on the top. I'm just going to put a little bit of glue at the bottom to make sure it's secure. I'm going to have it on a wonky angle because I can't struggle to do straight things. So now you've got your pocket. So the back, the top of it is glued to the top of your flap. It's got extra strength here on the front behind the saying, and it's got extra strength at this end behind the cupcake. Now if you wanted, if you didn't want as much showing, you could move your pocket further up and cut it further up. You could just use a long word. You could use, I did think about, but I'm not done it yet, cutting a lot of donuts out on one of the pages. There's lots of donuts, so you could stick donuts along there. So yeah, that's a different type of pocket, which is really quick and easy. You do need to remember, like I say, to cut it before you glue it. And you just need to take a little bit more care under here and around. Whereas obviously with the regular pocket we do at the front, it's a lot, you can put a lot more in, and it is a bit more flexible. You can stuff it a bit more. So if you're going to put things on here, the way I would suggest to do it is lie it flat. Put glue just on this section. Don't go up to the crease. Once you've got your glue on that section, leave a tiny margin of about 1 millimetre and then stick that on the bottom. I'm going to use repositionable tape dots just so I can show you. So that will then just leave a little bit at the bottom, get it straight. And then again on this one, I'm going to do that sideways. So if you're doing it sideways or landscape, again, leave a little bit of about 1 millimetre gap. And again, just pop that down. These are the just like the smaller 3x4 cutter parts, and I've actually stuck on top the pictures or the cutter parts of the different cupcake and sweet. So once you've done that, they will then sit up proud once and again. That doesn't matter, because once you've put your cutter parts in there, it will keep it closed. But then when you visible, and like I say, I would base mat the hinges before I stick them on. But it just shows you which different way you can do that. Okay, I'll take these off, otherwise I'll be looking for them later. If you didn't want to have one portrait and one landscape, you don't have to. Like on the other one, I did a phrase on one of them and a cupcake on the other. So what time is it? 25 past. Page 1 back, dead easy. You all know how to do these. Move them out of the way. I know I went a bit over the top in explaining that, but I think it's hard to write down the instructions. I have seen one place with one of the instructions of them on, And even though I knew where it was supposed to go, how it was supposed to go, the instructions didn't make sense to me. So we'll just leave that there. Okay, so for the back, you've got 2 flaps, 1 on each side. And so we need to cut them at 8 inches by 3.5. Mark off the 8 inches. In fact, no, I'm going to do it this way. So 3.5 by 8. And another 3.5 by 8. Get rid of the little bits because we really don't need them. Then get our scoreboard and on the 3.5 inch side we're going to score at 1/2 inch. So on the short side we're scoring, and then do that. Okay. So again, we're going to fold it over on those score lines. Oops. And burnish them down. Managed to put a kink in mine. That's impressive. And which side? Fold that over. And again, just burnish that down. Now at this point, I would line it up on the page. Now, I don't know if this is going to show. And get a piece of white. Sometimes, because this has been scored and folded, it might not, depending on the depth of the score for the fold, it might be a smidgen longer. So if you look at this one, you can see that the flap is about 1 millimetre longer than the page, and that is just because of the width of the scores. So all you need to do on that, and just check the other one as well, yeah, is literally line them up and just take, it's about 1 millimetre off, and then we're just going to again pop the glue on the hinges, when you're working black on black, I sometimes put white underneath it just to give an edge there. So that's one on this one as well. Oops. Again, just line that up, top and bottom, and press that down, and we have our 2 side opening flaps or doors. I'm just going to burnish that down again. and there we go. Okay, now we've got 2 pockets on the front of the doors, so we just need to cut 2. So they're slanted pockets, and we're going to cut 2 at 4.5 by 3.5 inches. So if I take that piece of card, cut that down to 4.5, and then we are going to cut 2 at 3.5 inches. Okay. Then again, we're going to score these. So on your shorter 3.5 inch side, you're going to score at 1/2 inch. And then you're going to turn it 90 degrees. And again, at 1/2 inch on the 4.5 inch side, and score there. Exactly the same on the other one. We're going to score at 1/2 inch. Spin it 90 degrees, and again score at 1/2 inch. Ooh. Okay, so I'm now going to, before I fold them over, I want to cut the pockets. So measuring 1.5 inches in, from the score line, and put that in white, you might be able to see it better. And again 1.5 inches in, and that's where we're going to cut that off. Like that. Does that show? So again, 1.5 inches from here, and 1.5 inches here, and then again we're going to just trim that down along there, so you can see where we cut those off on the diagonal. Now you can use a ruler and craft knife. I find it easier to just line it up in your trimmer and cut it like that. So again, line it up in your trimmer, and you've got your 2 angled pockets. Now I'm just going to rub the pencil marks out, because they will show, obviously with it being black. And then we're just going to mitre the corner, and on that one and we just fold these over, and again so we now have our corners to pop on to the front of the doors on the book. And again, if I open this out and line the pocket up, because of the width of the score line on here, it is about 1 millimetre too wide. So easy enough, just pop it in your trimmer and cut that off. You will find depending on the width of your bone folder or your embossing tool or whatever you use to score, there are different widths, and it can be like a smidgen out, or it can be quite a lot. Again, that one's about 1 millimetre out. So the easiest way I find to do this is open it out, pop your glue on, and then line that up. And then burnish it down. And exactly the same with this one. Oops. Line it up. Let the glue hold, and then fold that over, and just give it a good burnish down. Now, to go in here, I put a photo mat at 7.5 by 5.5. So 5.5 by 7.5. Now when you put this photo mat in, you slide it between those two. That will actually keep your pages closed. If I get if that's the right size. So if I show you with a not quite 7, so if you've got a 5.5 inch wide photo mat by 7.5, that will just slide in, and it will keep those flaps, doors closed. So I've got a 7.5 by 5.5 mat, and I also in mine put another photo mat that just slides inside, close the doors, and that keeps it in place. If you're using the collection, I also used some of the slightly larger cutter parts, mounted them onto black, and again you can just pop that inside. That I think is 4 by 2.5, or you know, if you've got other collections that maybe got 4 by 3s, you can just, and that just again will slot in there, and you can put your photograph on there as well. Okay, so does that make sense to everyone? I know it was quite a lot on this side, but obviously I'm sure we're crafters, we can manage. So yeah, do you want to put photo mats on? base decorate these bits so it doesn't look as obvious, and then put your cutter part on here. Or if you haven't got a cutter part, or you don't want to use a cutter part, you could just use a piece of contrasting paper on there like that. At the end of the day, these are your books. You can do whatever you wish. So I'll leave it there for tonight. Next week, yeah, we'll get this done. So next week we'll work on the front of page 2. Our front is quite simply a large flap at the top with a full width pocket at the bottom. The back of page 2 is again just a photo mat there, a door pocket that opens, and then we'll do this waterfall. It is a lot easier than it looks. Okay, so we'll leave that there for now, and I'll let people get cracking on it. If there are some kits still in the shop, if anybody wants any, I'll put the link in the comments after. And yeah, have a lovely weekend, and I'll see you all next week. All right, same time next week. Take care. Bye.